Hello and welcome to another episode of Learn IT with Mr. P. And today we have a triple header. Three simple programs that will reveal some information about your computer. They are uname, df, and free. Hey, this is Mr. P again. Today we're going to learn about some simple programs that give you some information about how your computer is operating. They are very important to learn a little bit how you're using memory and how your disks are operating, as well as telling you something about your operating system kernel. Those three programs are uname, df, and free. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how these work with some of the options you may want to find. So the first one we're going to go is uname, U-N-A-M-E, very simple. I hit enter, and it tells me, oh, lo and behold, I'm running Linux. Not really the most earth-shattering thing to learn, but I'm going to give us a uname with an option to tell me a bit more about the computer. So I'm going to hit uname-A, and A in this case means all. Remember, I'm using a lowercase a with many switches and options in Linux and Unix. Case does matter. And then when I type in uname with a space and a dash A, I can see that it says Linux. It also tells me Neil PC CM Tower. Well, that's the name of the computer that I'm using. But the next entry here, 5.4.0.94 generic, this indicates the kernel that I'm using. The kernel of the operating system is the most central part of the operating system. And often you want to know what the kernel version is because that can indicate that that needs to be updated. Often there are updates to the kernel that come out on a periodic basis, and there are bug fixes. There may be a zero-day exploit or some other performance issues that need to be addressed with a new kernel. Now, unlike always telling people always update to the latest and greatest, there are some occasions where you have to go back to an older version of the kernel. So if you're having behaviors of your computer that's not working correctly, sometimes you need to go back in time, so to speak, and install an older version of the kernel. But this is how you can do it with the uname with a dash A option. So that's the first program I want to show you called uname. There's another program called df, and df will tell you how your disks are doing in terms of storage. So let's take a look at hitting df here. And boy, I have a lot of stuff to look at. Now, it's giving you information in 1K blocks, but let me just show you what's really important here. My SBD1, my first hard drive, I am only using 19% of it. That is the key thing to look at here. You want to look at the drives that are being used for your data. A rule of thumb has been when I was first starting out in computers that you don't want to get above 70% of disk storage. When hard drives were measured in megabytes or hundreds of megabytes, that was more important. But now when you're dealing with terabyte drives, having 10 or 15% free is still a lot of storage. But there are some reasons to not let that storage get too close to zero. Obviously would be a bad thing, but you want to keep the amount of memory free or disk storage space free for a couple of reasons. One, obviously, if you are storing data, whether it's a mail server or a database server or some other storage of important files, if you exceed how much space is available, you can't store files, well, that's going to be a problem. So that means you have to archive files off to another media, add additional disk space, or perhaps delete files that are no longer needed. The other reason that you want to do this is for fragmentation. When you edit a file and you add more things to it or take things away, the file, when it gets saved again, may be put on different parts of the hard drive. It's akin to when you have a chapter of a book that appears on different pages and jumps around. Now, you can follow that. You can know where to go. The pointers of where each file is located will tell it where to go from part A to part B to part C, etc. But when the drive gets all fragmented and those little pieces of files are strewn everywhere, performance is going to suffer. The hard drive, or the SD, if you have a solid state drive, will have to seek all over it to get the data, which will cause performance problems. You can do things like defragment your hard drive occasionally, but again, as a rule of thumb, just try to keep your hard drive so that it doesn't get full. And I always said 80% full is about right. Now, you can see the numbers here seem a little bit confusing, because in these kinds of numbers, 407, 25, you might want to do something that's more human readable. So there is a way of doing DF with a dash H, lowercase, to give you human readable output. And there you go, 66 megabytes, 3.9 gigabytes, and the like. So I know that I have here 110 gigabytes, 20 gigs are used, 85 gigs are available. That's a little bit easier to read. You'll see some of these things called dev loop, the 100% being used. All these options, all these entries here. Those are basically reserved for the operating system and go beyond what I was going to discuss today. But don't worry, that's fine. Those 100% usage, those loops, dev are nothing to worry about. That's just an operating system, so to speak, reserved file. So we looked at uname, we looked at df. The third one I want to talk to you about today is something called free. So I'll type in the word free. And what free does is it tells you how your memory is doing. So on this particular computer, I have 81444104. Well, that's not human readable, but these are the amount of memory that I'm using currently, and I have just under half of the memory, so to speak, being used. There's a swap. Now, swap is a portion of the hard drive reserved for virtual memory. Again, you see that I'm not using much at all, which is good. In this case, I'm not doing a lot of reading and writing to the disk to swap out memory from the RAM onto the hard drive. But again, with this type of command free, you can also use a human readable form, and with a dash H, the same way you did with the last command. And then I see I have 7.8 gigabytes of total memory and 2.4 gigabytes being used, and 3.7 gigabytes is free. So this is only an 8 gigabyte system. I believe that I'm using some of the memory for the video card in this particular box. And again, I have 4 gigabytes of swap. So this computer is running fine. I have plenty of free memory. If you have a computer that's serving lots of users, either through virtualization or people are logging in, or you're running some very, very heavy-duty programs, you might want to see if this is a reason to increase your RAM. So today, uname, df, free, simple programs to use, give you some valuable information about how your computer's operating. So again, I hope you like this video. Please let me know if you want me to do something else like this, and I'll talk to you again. Thank you very much. Hi, I hope you liked the video. Please like and subscribe, but more importantly, leave a comment so I know what type of topics you'd like me to go into next time, what things you'd like me to explore in more depth, and certainly how I can help you on your journey to become an IT professional. Thank you again.